Hello and welcome to you all, and thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm Dr. Christopher Rush, and it's my distinct pleasure to talk to you all about some of our exciting new products we've been developing here at Galorath, which we think you're going to get even better value from using our SEER tools. So I'll start this morning by sharing our vision in CAD to cost, followed by an introduction into the CAD to cost solutions we have to offer you. We'll review the key benefits of CAD to cost and look at how Safetyful Manufacturing, the cost engine, powers the estimation process directly from your CAD models. I'll look and briefly discuss some of the use cases, the users of SEER, and show you how successful you can be from using these tools. I'll then pass you over to Dan. Dan's going to provide some real live demonstrations of all the interfaces we have in SEER for CATIA V5 and our SEER 3D product. Once we've done that, we'll summarize everything we've gone through today and hopefully leave plenty of time for any questions you may have. So without further ado, so our vision really is to get manufacturing costs directly into the hands of designers, cost engineers, and the supply chain, so all can quantify costs directly from CAD models. Many of you probably heard at some point in your careers that 70 to 80% of manufacturing costs gets committed during this early design phase. So having that ability to get costs directly from design data empowers the businesses and with cost knowledge sooner. Companies get better understanding of cost before they're committing to a project, which ultimately reduces costly redesign later in the product life cycle. So our tools are going to save your expensive assets time, and you're going to get more estimates and quotes finished in a shorter period of time. Bottom line is, we think these tools are going to save you a lot of money. You're going to be faster, become better, and get even more value from using SEER, if you can believe that possible. So the SEER for CATIA V5 interfaces that we have, these are essentially companion products to the SEER for Manufacturing cost model. So within CATIA, designers can get real-time cost feedback as they're designing. Designers will get a visual cost trend each time they rerun an estimate for a design or requirement change. The estimates themselves, are SEER manufacturing based, so they're comprehensive. They include labor, material, and tooling costs, all the typical costs you get from SEER for manufacturing. There are currently 3 interfaces inside of CATIA. We have one for composites, one for sheet metal, and one for machining. The interfaces essentially automate the extraction of all the CAD model data and the geometry to build a detailed SEER for Manufacturing cost model, and it's all done within seconds, and you're going to see that when Dan demonstrates shortly. So this puts a lot of cost engineering knowledge and power right into the hands of the designers, right in their workstation. Designers have where designers have the biggest opportunity to affect cost. So we give the designers insight into what their decisions may cost to avoid costly redesigns later. SEER 3D, on the other hand, is a standalone CAD independent application. So you don't need CATIA or any of the other main vendor CAD solution. It's designed to read step files and can be used for machining part cost estimates. It's SEER 3D. It's really easy and intuitive to use. Some of you have probably already begun using it. It builds estimates in seconds, and it can save you many hours of manual effort transcribing drawings and or CAD model data into SEER-MFG. So the created estimates can be published and shared and incorporated into larger project estimates for sub-assemblies and assemblies. Anyone involved with manufacturing cost estimating will find the SEER tools very, very helpful indeed. So I'll just go through a couple of the benefits that we see from CAD to cost. There are lots of advantages, all kind of listed here. Of course, you're getting direct cost from solid models. You no longer need to use effort translating and compiling the part geometry to make sense for your estimate. These interfaces, they capture organizational knowledge and best practices. By that, we incorporate design rules and your own manufacturing processes, your own material data, labor rates, the efficiencies of your organization into the costing process. So all of that information is available for reuse across the entire company and team that's involved with the design and costing. And of course it accelerates the costing process even 90% quicker than SEER currently is on its own. So these faster cost estimates mean less expense, free up resources, so they can focus on other critical tasks. And it's a process-driven quality. So the SEER tools provide consistency. It's repeatable and it's a robust process. Of course, you're able to optimize cost with instant trade-offs. So you get visibility into the cost drivers, and it promotes exploration of conceptual and detailed design alternatives. You get and essentially you're exposing the cost implications to a broader set of people. So you're realizing a culture of engagement and accountability. So you can make the faster, better, more informed decisions. And there are probably many other benefits too, as we'll see. So the SEER tools themselves, these are often an integral part of the design process already. So but with these newer solutions, we accelerate all the benefits of having a cost engine embedded within the design process. It makes quantified costing data and process knowledge accessible to a wider community within that team. And one of the key concepts we use is that of manufacturing environments. These utilize all the SEER knowledge bases and templates, and along with your own customized or data pertinent to you, such as material costs and labor rates. All of these are set up to reflect the parts or the location or your specific organization, so you can get deadly accurate estimates within seconds. So what happens is once you set these up, within the interfacing application, you just simply select the environment that matches the part you're dealing with or estimating, and away you go. You just enter the quantity you need to make and you get your estimate. So some of you listening, or many of you listening today, you're long-time users of SEER, and you understand that the SEER for Manufacturing tool and the industry standard data that sits behind these cost interfaces. So this is what we're calling SEER for Manufacturing. Is kind of like the cost engine for these CAD tools interfaces. It's a bottom-up parametric cost model. It's based on industry standards, and we use parametric forecasting, regression, and other analytical techniques to make the power of this tool into SEER-MFG. We estimate at the manufacturing process level for individual parts, sub-assemblies, and complete assemblies. You can use SEER-MFG to estimate a simple plastic widget all the way up to a full aircraft assembly. I mean, it's that broad and that specific. It's routinely used, for DFM analysis and trade studies. And the outputs are unit cost, total cost, based on learning and your productivity. You get the labor cost is broken out into setup, direct, inspection, and rework, but you also get your material and tooling, so you can make really informed decisions about the cost, what this manufacturing will cost. Further than that, it's intuitive to use. and because it's based on part and process parameters. So you're putting in information that makes sense to the part that you're manufacturing. You're describing the processes, we're drilling holes here, we're milling here, or we're laying this ply into this situation, onto this type of tool. So it's all very explainable and defendable when you need to present or negotiate that estimate. So just to go over who are the typical users and what are some of the uses of SEER. Well, the users typically are cost engineers, production engineers, design engineers, industrial engineers, and integrated product teams. So these are, we work with these kind of users on a daily basis. And they can all benefit from these new interfaces because you're going to get faster, more accurate results with less knowledge about the processes. You can start to broaden the applications within your companies. These tools are helpful to business development and supply chain. You can do should cost support, aid to negotiations. I mean, it's common to have SEER estimates in front of suppliers to negotiate price. You get the SEER estimate, the supplier has their estimate, you can go through the estimate, you can show them exactly what you've done, it all makes sense. It's like, look, these are the processes we used, and you come to a new agreement, and you'll see that in a case study I'm going to highlight later, how that kind of works and saves millions. I mean, you could save millions doing this. Of course, there are design and production groups who are routinely doing trade studies, what ifs, what if we machine this part, or what if we take this part that we've been machining for years, what if we now use a composite set of processes, how would that look now? And maybe it's worth trading to go in that direction. So I'll just want to touch on a couple of the successes you can have using these tools. You don't have to take what I'm saying or believe me because if you get some time, just go and look at Galorath.com. There's a lot of information, case studies. You can see exactly what successes other users have got and how they wanted to share with us and the larger community. They want you to know that, hey, these tools are working for us. So they're all unique, but I'll just emphasize something from Philips. They were recommended to use SEER by Boeing. And to use a quote from their case study, they were saying directly how one of SEER MFG's strengths is its ability to influence design decisions, pointing the way to the simplest and most cost-effective solution. That's one of the part of our vision, right? To get these into the cost of these tools into the hands of designers. Additionally, they use the SEER tool as a should cost negotiation with suppliers. So they were able to get a price that normally they've been quoted at €1,000. They used SEER, built the models, and were able to say, hey, look, this is what SEER is saying. They got the negotiated price down to €350 based on the SEER estimates. So a massive saving. And then they were doing trades and other activities with SEER, ultimately resulted in savings of €1.5 million in the first year of use. I mean, that's incredible. It's real. We're not making it up, but that's the kind of success you can have with these tools. And I think with that, I've probably rambled on enough. I think I would like to hand over to Dan Kennedy so he can actually show you these CAD to cost interfaces to help you improve your process.
Thanks, Dr. Rush and Kelly and everybody who's taken the time to come and listen to us and talk about how these tools can make their lives better. My name is Dan Kennedy. I'm the Director of the Engineering Services here for Galorath, and I work in this tool every day. it's good. My background is in composites and in mostly operations and in programs. And boy, when I discovered these SEER tools, that was a real godsend to me. So what I'd like to talk about today is some of these estimators, these tools that we have plugged in to the Dassault CATIA desktop for designers to use. Much of my career has been spent trying to give advice to designers as they're doing the development of these parts to make them more economical and to design to cost, either from a manufacturing side or from the operations side to get them back in the box on their costs. I think we've all been involved in a program where the schedule gets compromised because we have to go into redesign. The designers don't have to redesign their technical solution, and the program manager doesn't want to pay for the solution they came up with. So these are very, very good tools, and as I said, my background is predominantly in composites, where I've spent most of my time, and this tool is outstanding. Combined with the CATIA, it gives you, as Chris described, a deadly accurate estimates on composites. We do sheet metal and we do machining as well. But I'm going to just show you in depth, or a bit in depth, what the composites tool does and how you would normally use it. I think everyone is, many of you are familiar with the standard method of building up a cost inside SEER for MFG, where you start a project, you come in and you start laying down the process specific information. You tell it how big the part is. And then, importantly, you come in and you start laying in different plies. What SEER is looking for is it's looking for what the ply that you're putting in is made out of, how big it is, how you're going to cut it, how you're going to place it, and do all of those things, what the orientations are, how many plies there are. It was really quite good for me when I got into the CATIA world and could do things like come in and find out the materials, the orientations, the rosettes, then get into the stacking engineering and start making measurements of how big these plies are, so that I could take this data and push it into the SEER for Manufacturing ply books and build up my ply books that way. It doesn't take long to go in and pull those plies out of a CATIA model, and it is very quick to go ahead and set up a ply book and do your estimate inside SEER. Of course, after you put the layup in there, you would add different steps for non-destructive inspection and cure and trim and finishing and all of those things. So really, the SEER tool in a fairly short period of time could go ahead and create me a very good, very accurate, very comprehensive estimate that I could go and speak to either suppliers or the customers, or explain it to the IPT, how much this thing costs and why. And it was remarkable for me. What I think Galorath and Dr. Rush and his team have done is actually very remarkable, that we now have an icon sitting right here inside the design environment. We've worked with Dassault to integrate this into CATIA, and quite frankly, in just a few seconds, SEER is going to go in, it's going to interrogate all of this geometry, it's going to ask me a few of the questions that I would normally be asking to set this job up. It's going to ask me what my environments are, how I'm going to lay it up, how many I'm going to build. It's already brought in the size of the part that I'm dealing with. It asks me for some of these process options. How am I going to cut it? How am I going to place it? What kind of bagging materials am I going to use? What's my debulk interval going to be? Whether it's core in it or not, how I'm going to cure it. Generally speaking, what kind of materials I'm going to be curing. Whether I want to include non-destructive testing, tool fab, finishing. And it's got materials details. And really, very quickly at this point, when I tell it to estimate, what would have taken me an hour or two is now done inside SEER. The designer never had to leave the desktop. It's telling him right now how much this part is going to cost to build. It's telling him what his setups are, what his directs are, what his inspection times are, how much rework is involved. It actually comes in and will write the data right here on what he did to create that estimate, what the inputs that he made were, writes it right inside the CATIA data. It's there for him next time he pulls it up. If, for instance, he were to decide that this was too much money and he wanted to make some changes, he could go in, for instance, and start changing some of these plies to find out what happens if he drops plies or changes plies. He simply reruns the SEER estimate. And in a very, very short period of time, SEER is going to tell him that the cost of his design is going down. And that's incredibly valuable for a designer who's working to a constraint that might not be his primary constraint. Designers tend to look for technical solutions. Program managers in the organizations want to be able to make it affordable. And the last thing you want to do is have to go in and redesign something because you don't meet your objectives. If you want to take a real close look, make some tweaks, I think that you hit this Show SEER button and it will pull up the SEER estimate right here in front of you, and you can go ahead and look at everything that is laid in. This tool just laid in 90 plies in a matter of seconds. All the sizes, all the orientations, the materials you're interested in. It's laid in your inspection. It's brought in the dimensions already, reloaded it, loaded all the standards that the industry has developed, included those in the estimate. It's chosen an autoclave cure, told the size of it, all the things that you need to know to make this part cured. It's gone in and extracted the trim length out of the CATIA data, and it loaded up the finishing operations that you're going to need to do. All of this in just a matter of seconds right on the desktop and giving you a price. If you're interested in looking at the fine detail inside these things, the Aero Details report that I think most of you know well, it's got it all broken out, and you can see what the setups for standards are in the world, the standard direct minutes, and where your estimate falls on those things. All this data that you're accustomed to seeing out of SEER is in there and ready to go. And in just a few seconds, you've got a very robust, very defendable, very accurate estimate on your composite details. That is the composites, and I just love this tool. It makes my life tremendously easy, much easier than it would be otherwise. We've got a number of other tools that we can use. We've created tools for sheet metal, and tools for sheet metal, we've already built the Aero sheet metal tools where we have taken the standard sheet metal processes, the platings, the formings, the machining, the painting and finishing, heat treats. We've already taken those and made them easy inside the Aero sheet metal tool, but this tool takes it one step farther and extracts all the geometry. Much like what I just showed you inside the CATIA tool, the designer is presented with this little dialog box where he can give the top level design information that he's looking for. He may want to choose to do a typical process here. He may want to do a trade on that at some point. Picks a process, picks the process options, how you preform them, what you do after forming, what kind of detailed finished operations you might want to do, and whether you're going to do tool fab and design, and very, very quickly it will go in and it will create you a sheet metal cost for this part. We've got an $85 part now coming in here, just that quickly. You can go in and modify your estimate. You may want to run a trade on this. in some form. You may want to decide you want to do a high pressure press operation on this thing, do away with the drop hammer. He may not know which the best approach to take is. Re-estimate this thing, and he just took the price down on that part. It's that fast, sitting right on the designer's desktop. He can do design trades, process trades, and make really good decisions about how to keep these parts affordable. Once again, you can open up the SEER tool. It's already loaded. You can make all the manipulations, all the changes, all the refinements, all the tweaking of the estimate that you may want to do inside SEER as you would customarily do. It's just a phenomenal tool, in my opinion. Once again, when you tell it OK, it goes ahead and saves the work that you did inside CATIA, so that the next time the designer loads it, it will compare what he does in that session to what he had previously estimated he needed to do. The third tool that we have sitting inside the Deso platform, inside the CATIA platform, is for machining. I find this to be very, very useful as well. The typical process for estimating a machine part is to pull it up, to go into the CATIA tools, into the design tools, start interrogating surfaces, start forming in your mind how you're going to create those features in a machine part. Make measurements, as we did before. Measure those features. Find out what the surface area of those things is, say for a finished machine pass. All the things that you would normally do to create an estimate are now done for you very, very quickly. The designer has already spent a great deal of time putting features into a machine part. What SEER just did, it went in, interrogated all those features, and created a manufacturing process to generate those features. The same window that you have seen before pops up and speaks to what he may want to know. There are a number of different opportunities to choose different types of machining processes for these things. Of course, as it's heavily driven by setup quantities and setup costs, your production quantities are important. What material you're going to be using, forgings, die casting, all the things you're accustomed to seeing in SEER are loaded into this thing. What sort of materials you're using, what's your raw shape. It's already pulled the lengths, widths, heights, all the geometry has come out of there. I've told it to display the stock outline. You can see the part that's embedded into the wrought stock that you're doing. It lets you choose the roughing operations you may want to choose. Again, it's already calculated the total stock volume, the finished part volume. It knows how much material it's removing. It knows the surface area of the part, how much volume you're taking off. You can turn on different, choose different ways of doing these things. Tool fab and design, of course, is there. Surface finish operations. It lists all of these surfaces, how it intends to finish them, what the tolerance of those things might be. If you want to change any of those things, you can go in, you can edit those groups. You can change the way this part of the tool is looking at the features that you're talking about. And then once again, in just a very few seconds, really, you're generating a SEER estimate based on the geometry of the part that the designer chose, and it's creating a model here for SEER that'll tell you how much that part costs. Just that quickly. On the desktop, he can see how many hours that he's working on these things, what his total cost of those things are. Saving it in the CATIA tree, again, if you want to take a quick look at what it is that it has created for you, there it is. It has extracted all of that data right there and created all of those mapped manufacturing process steps to create that part. You can go in and modify these things if you like. You can change anything you want just as you would normally do inside SEER. Tune that up, print it out, look at all the detailed analyses that come into those things. All of these things are the way you would expect the way you've come to trust in SEER, are getting generated just in a matter of seconds. So I think these are pretty remarkable tools. They make estimating much faster, much easier, much more efficient, much more accurate in many cases. It's taking surface areas down to the 4th or 5th decimal place. That's something that is very difficult to pull out. Not very difficult, but challenging sometimes to pull out, move over into the SEER modeler, and make those entries. The expert databases are already there. The environments that Dr. Rush has alluded to, we've changed those up just a little bit. You can very easily edit these things inside an Excel file. You can give it boundaries on your rules, how you want things treated, the maximum hole that you're going to drill, 2 inches. You could take that down to 1 inch. You could take that to 1/4 inch. A lot of the things that are the expert information that this interface is using is very accessible to your subject matter experts and your estimators and the people that you trust to represent your organization on doing these processes. Materials are there, how you treat them, different processes. All of these things are already put in. They're in a much easier way to use than perhaps you're accustomed to. And again, the estimates are deadly accurate. But we also asked ourselves, what happens if estimators, what if it's not a designer who's working day to day inside the CATIA environment and understands this tool really well, or maybe you just don't want to give the estimators the opportunity to make changes inside the design. So the team here has created what we call 3D, which is a tool that's really based on step files. If the CATIA designer wants to export this design into a step file and pass it off to an estimator or someone else in the organization, we've got this tool that allows people to quickly, almost just as quickly, get the same kind of quality estimates that the designer will have on his desktop. You start by importing the part. That's the same part I was looking at in CATIA. It's got a little display here, a modeler. It's got the ability to come in if you would like and do measurements inside this modeler. You can visualize the part you're estimating. It's got a number of general settings where, again, it's asking you what kind of environment are you going to be working in, what kind of processing are you going to be doing, how many parts are you going to be building, just as we had in the CATIA, whether raw stock, aluminum alloys, if it's rectangular, again, show the part nested inside your stock. It asks you some of these questions just as it did inside the CATIA tool. It talks about the roughing operations that you're going to be using. It talks about the surface finishing operations you're going to be using. And again, you can go in if you wish and turn these operations on or off. You may decide you're not going to get those radii off the tool. You may want to go in with a separate process and turn those on. You may want to, instead of circular milled surface, you may want to go in and grab one of these and just turn that face off entirely, or drag it into another process. It's a very, very flexible, very good tool. Holes and countersinks, in this case I showed you the environment. All these holes are bigger than 2 inches. But very, very quickly you just tell the tool to export your estimate. And in this case, SEER is going through, it's extracting, again, all of the geometry you have, all of those features that we looked at just a moment ago, and it is creating a SEER model just that fast, where it has extracted all that geometry, all that data, and used the expert files, the environment files, the K-bases even, that you've got worked out, and created an estimate just that fast. It's pretty remarkable. It's going to make people's lives much, much better when it comes to doing estimates. Again, I just created 3 estimates in a span of about 20 minutes. So if you're doing these kind of estimates, these add-ons are very value rich. They will make your life much easier. They will save your company lots of money. It'll save your important, highly paid technical resources the work of generating estimates and let them get on to the more important work at hand. So I think at that, other than to summarize what it is that these tools might be able to do for you, I guess we should probably go into a summary at this point and talk about what it is the tool's going to do for you. You get really accurate estimates almost instantly. You're getting real-time cost feedback for the designer during his effort. You're really increasing the efficiency of the people who are doing estimates for you. You're reducing the demand on the subject matter experts, whether they're your operations, your highly paid operations folks working on estimates, or your designers, or your program managers. Even the communication tools just makes it much easier to communicate what your assumptions were, what the results were, where your costs lie, and it's in standard work for people, so they do understand it and realize that you can focus those assets on more critical issues inside your organization. If you don't have an effective workflow for doing estimates, this will actually help you create an effective workflow. And importantly, if you put it in the hands of the designer, where the designer is creating something, he's got that opportunity for 70 or 80% savings in the decisions he makes every day.
Great, thank you, Dan. Okay, thank you, Dan and Dr. Chris Rush for the presentation today, and thank you everybody for joining us.